James again with Northwest HVAC in Spokane, Washington. Today we are going to be working on venting as per the IFGC code book. I've already done a earlier oral exam video from a few years ago, and recently I posted a gas piping video for the test, or just in general. Today we're going to be working on a venting that kind of goes along with those other two. Most of you probably going to be using it for the test, but also in a real world application out there, we got to probably know how to size pipe properly and how to size venting properly. Whether you're an installer, whether you're going to be submitting bids, or even as a service tech, it's important to know that your issue with this unit might be because improperly sized vent. So here you go, venting. Okay, first thing we need to do is understand visually how the different vent types might be depicted in, say, a drawing. Now, most of the ones on the test, I believe, are not drawings, they're just in words, and we'll do some of those later. But for starters, we need to recognize this as a single wall. You notice these two in the middle, they got the extra lines, or they got the dotted lines on the inside. That'll represent a B vent, double wall B vent, and that's what the extra lines and the dots are about. It's representing double wall B vent. And then the third one over here is masonry, and it's supposed to kind of depict the terracotta liner with you get the kind of the 3 or 4 bricks on the top here. And so we get that clearly defined as single wall, either of those B vent, and that one there is masonry. Next, we need to know about Appendix B in the code book. Appendix B, if you find yourself really struggling with the written questions in words, you can draw yourself a picture, and then Appendix B will actually give you, based on the picture you draw, B vent, single wall, B vent, masonry, B vent. Then this will refer you to the proper table in the code book to use for that particular question. And this goes on single appliances. It keeps going on into 2 or more as well. So there's 4 different tables that we're going to use, and I'll show you those in a second. So with the tables, they have all your information on the top. So this first one, 504.2 bracket 1, you can see on the top it says it's for type B double wall vent. And then number of appliances, single. Category 1, because we pretty much only do this venting stuff for the category 1 metal vent 80%ers, as we call them. Then appliance vent connection, this is the only one that says this, but it says connected directly to vent. So all that means is it's B vent the whole way. So I usually have my students on the top, I have them write B vent on the top. So that's the first chart. Notice that the book had to turn sideways to use this chart. I'll come back to that later. Okay, the next one, you can see on the bottom it says continued. The next one actually is going to be 504.2 bracket 2. You can see this one, 504.2 bracket 2. This one says B vent, 1 appliance, single wall connector. So we now have B vent, single wall. So I have my students right on the top of this one, B vent, single wall. 504.2 bracket 2. Next one we're going to look at is 504.2 bracket 3. This one here, as we can see, it says masonry chimney. So not B vent anymore, this one's masonry now. And then of course still single appliance, and we got a type B double wall connector. So again, I have my students write masonry B vent on this one. So that's 3 so far. Last one is 5042 bracket 4 masonry single appliance single wall connector. So this one would say masonry single wall on it. So we've covered 4 now. We got B vent, or it says B vent connected directly. Then we got B vent single wall, and we have masonry B vent and masonry single wall. So what do we mean by single wall connector, B vent connector, whatnot, right? So like right here I have a system and it's got a B vent, and then the connector, what we call the vent connector, is single wall. So we would use the B vent single wall table for this. And if these had B vent connectors, then we'd use the B vent. And if this was masonry, then we would use, masonry single wall. And so the main bolded part of the chart that says B vent or masonry, that's referring to the chimney part here. And then down in here where it talks about the vent connector, single wall, that's referring to your vent connector or your common vent connector as well. See, over here on this system we'll be doing a little bit later, this one's a 4-way, and so each one of these, after you get to 2, that's a common vent connector, and that's a common vent connector, and that's a common vent connector. We would still treat all these as single wall, vent connectors, but they happen to be common to multiple appliances. So we'll get into that a little bit later too. So now we talked about the book having to be sideways, right? And we had those 4 tables. So we have the same 4 tables, and the first most common mistake people make with venting is getting on the wrong table. They have a B vent table, and they're looking at B vent single wall. Or they have a single appliance, and they're looking at 2 or more table. So the second set of tables, it's the same 4 tables, but if you notice, we have to turn our book back the right way. Okay, and if we look close, we have 5043 bracket 1. So remember, the other ones were all 5042 bracket 1, 2, 3, 4. These are 5043 bracket 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you look at the top here, we can see it says type B double wall vent, and then number of appliances 2 or more. So before it just said single, so now this is for 2 or more. And then of course appliance type category 1, and appliance vent connector is B vent. So just like earlier what we did, we wrote B vent. On this one, 5043 bracket 1, we'll write B vent. But before it was for single appliance, and now it's for 2 or more appliance. So here is that why the book was sideways thing I said I would talk about later. The single appliance tables, we can go back there for a second and look at that. The single appliance tables, they're sideways. And the 2 or more appliance tables is long ways, normal way. The other thing that's different about the 2 or more appliance table is down here, it's got this common vent capacity. So we talked about that already. When you have a system like this, you're going to size that one, you're going to size that one, and then you have to size the common vent, by adding them together, which we'll get to later. But that common vent comes off the bottom here. Everything else comes off the top of this chart. So moving on here, we got another chart we have to mark, because remember there's 4. There's still only the 4. It's 4 for single appliance, and it's 4 for 2 or more. So next one we want to go to is 5043 bracket 2, which says B vent with a single wall connector, 2 or more appliances, single wall connector. So this one we would label as B vent single wall. Of course, we got 2 more. So the next one, 5043 bracket 3. As you probably guessed by now, masonry, B vent connector, 2 or more appliances. And then the last one, 5043 bracket 4. Yep, masonry, 2 or more, but now a single wall connector. So we'd have masonry B vent over here on bracket 3. We'd have masonry single wall over here on bracket 4. So, as I said before, the most common mistake that people make on these is that they get on the wrong table. And then the next common mistake we make is something else I'm going to show you here in a second after I zoom. So looking at this table, this one just happened to be the masonry 2 or more with the B vent connector, 5043 bracket 3. I could have used any of them, but this one fits on the left side the best, so we're going to look at this one. Down the side here, we have our vent height. And then we have what they're going to give us in the question, or in the field if you needed it, connector rise. And that refers to the height of the entry to that chimney above the unit. This one over here you see says 3. So they're assuming that one has a 3-foot rise from here to there. Okay, so next we want to look at is along the top. We have 3-inch all the way up to 10-inch. So this will give you your, your size of your vent that you want. And then where another mistake will happen is we have fan assist units and we have natural draft units, right? Going back to this again, we can see that is how a fan assist would be depicted. It kind of looks like a little cartoon fan. And then a natural draft might be depicted this way, like you might see on a water heater. Or it might just be like a square on the front, representing like the draft hood of a furnace. So it's very distinct on the pictures. The fan one looks like a fan, and all the rest of them are natural draft. Okay, so here we have fan, min, max, and then we have nat max. So just like with the gas piping, on the nat ones, we just pick one that's higher than the one we have. So if I had a 20,000 BTU one, then I could use that 21 right there. If I had a 30,000 BTU one, then I'd have to come over here and I'd have to use that 4-inch because that one goes up to 40, right? So, but the fan min max messes people up. Our fan assist one has to be between those two figures, the fan min max. So just looking at this 6-foot height, I don't know, let's use the 3-foot rise. If I had a fan assist unit that was, let's say, 50,000 BTUs, then I look at that first fan min max, it says 27,000 minimum, 49,000 maximum. So therefore that's not good enough, I got to go to the next bracket. That next bracket fan min max, it shows 42 minimum, 92 maximum. So my 50K would fit right in between those two. If that was 100K, then I'd have to go up to the next bracket because that's above my fan max. So you just got to keep in mind that your fan units have to fit between that min max number. If I'm looking at this 4-inch column, we'll stick with that 42, 92 right there. If I had a unit that was 40, it wouldn't fit in there. It's below the min. And if I had a unit that was 95, it wouldn't fit in there. It's above the min. But an 80,000, 60,000, that fits in there real nice. It's between 42 and 92. So that's the next mistake people make is with the fan min max thing. Another very common one is when you're on a fan one and you accidentally put your finger on a gnat. So one way that helps with that is if you take your highlighter and you highlight down all the gnat columns. Now I've been doing this long enough, I just know every third one is gnat, and then 1 and 2 is fan. But when you're first starting out, maybe you just highlight down all your gnats, and then that way if you're looking at a fan one, you stay on the white, and if you're looking at a gnat one, you get on the highlight. But that's another common mistake that happens too, is between that fan min max and the gnat max, mixing up your fan and your gnat. Now, there's something else on the bottom of this chart we'll talk about later, but first I want to point out that on the 2 or more appliances, we had connector rise for our second column. When you go back over here to the single appliances, one thing you'll notice is instead of connector rise, you have lateral. The table works exactly the same. You got your 3 through 10 inch vent sizes on the top, and we have our fan min max and our gnat max. This one's 504.2 bracket 1 B vent B vent. That's irrelevant though, they all work the same. 6 foot rise, only now or 6 foot height, only now instead of having a connector rise, we have a lateral. And all that refers to is on a single appliance, you're gonna have, it's gonna go sideways a little bit before it goes up in the chimney, right? If it didn't, if it just went straight up, then you would use this 0 lateral column. But if you have any kind of horizontal, then the lateral there represents your horizontal. So let's do a couple now. Now there's a few different ways we can get this. We can get this as, just a single appliance. Remember we talked about the fan assist. This one's got the dots, so it's B vent with a single wall connector. And then we have to go to the single appliance table to size for this one. That's pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to really go through that. We concern ourselves with the height of the chimney and the lateral, and then we look at the BTUs, and in fact it's fan assist. We'll be using that fan min max thing, right? Then we can have 2 depicted, 2 or more, depicted in a couple of different ways. We can have them now, anything for the test, because I believe the test ones are all in words. Anything for the test is going to be in this arrangement here, where they're side by side. You got one vent connector, you got a size. Got another vent connector, you got a size. Then you got your common vent, you got a size. But you may find yourself in a setting in the field, maybe not this crazy of a setting, but certainly when you're going through the night class for gas codes here, or the day class for gas codes, I'm going to make you practice on something this elaborate, this difficult, right? And now instead of all being side by side going into the vent, we actually have multiple different sizes we're going to have to get here, because we're going to need to get a size for this one. We're going to need to get a size for that one. Then we have a common vent here for both of those 2. Then we have to get a size for that one. And then we have a common vent here for all 3 of those. And then we need a size for that one. And then we have a small piece of common vent here for all 4 of those units. And then we go to the bottom of the chart I was talking about earlier to get your common vent. Now on these practice ones, and in real life, the test ones aren't this difficult, but what I've done is we put flue collar sizes. Because if we remember the rules, it says in the chapter 5 of the code book, you can't be more than 2 sizes bigger than your flue collar size. And you can't be smaller than your flue collar size. And then of course Spokane has that weird rule from the old blue book that we can't vent a fan assist unit into a masonry by itself. It's got to have a natural draft with it, or you have to put a vent liner down that masonry chimney. But as far as this is concerned with the flue collar sizes here, this one here, it says it has a 7-inch flue collar. Let's say that I size this and it says I only need a 6-inch vent. Well, because the rule says you can't be smaller, then that flute collar 7, I have to make that a 7-inch vent. And then also we have to remember that this chimney can't be smaller than any other connecting piece. So if this came out to be an 8-inch here, and then we go to the bottom of the table and we see that that only needs to be a 7-inch, well, we can't get smaller. So once we go 8-inch down here, that has to be bumped up to an 8-inch as well. So yes, 8-inch would be much larger than that 4-inch, but when you combine the BTUs of all these units, then 8-inch doesn't end up being 2 sizes bigger, if that makes sense. So let's start with this one first. And the first thing you want to do is you want to get on the right table so you don't screw yourself up by being on the wrong table. So before you look at any of the numbers, height, rise, any of that other crap, first you want to get on the right table. So what we have here is 2 or more units, so we know it's not going to be sideways. It's going to be a regular, right up and down normal table. And then we see that we have a B vent with single wall connectors. So before we look at any of the numbers, we want to go to that table, 2 or more, B vent single wall, and it's going to bring us to table 5043 bracket 2. 5043 bracket 2, and then always double check first. This is 2 or more units, check. It's got a B vent, check. It's got a single wall connector, check. Okay, now I can start looking at my numbers on my sheet because now I know I'm on the right table. So I've avoided that first common mistake, right? Now I got to avoid doing that fan gnat mistake we talked about earlier, right? So the first thing we have is, I tend to do the bigger one first, but it doesn't really matter. We have and the way I say it is, we have a 30-foot rise, 30-foot height with a 3-foot rise. So the way I say that is 30 and 3, and then we have a 100K fan. So I would call this in my head as 30 and 3, 100K fan, right? So when I'm on that table, then all I got to do is come down to the 30 section with the 3-foot rise, and I go and I look at my first fan min max is 5464. Well, that's not big enough. I need 100. Skip that because it's it's nat max. Go to the next 2. That's fan min max, as we can see here. So that says 85 to 119. 85 min, 119 max. 100 is comfortably between those 2. So I can now come to the top and see that I need a 4-inch vent. So that unit right there has a 4-inch. This piece of pipe from here to here is 4 inches. So now we want to do this guy, this water heater. We got 30 and 2, 40 nat. So this one's a nat. See, like I said earlier, sometimes you might see nat depicted like that, where it's just got like a square, like an opening, like a natural draft furnace. Either way, water heater nat, furnace nat, either way. Keep in mind the test ones are in words, so I'm going to show you a different method for that, but for practice, we get a lot of picture ones. So for this one, we got 30 and 2, with a 40K nat. Now actually, what happens if it was a 40 height? So when we look at this table, making sure we're still on the right table here, B vent, single wall, 2 or more. When we look at the table, it goes 6, 8, 10, 15, 20, 30, and then 50. So just like we did with gas piping, if that was a 40-foot height, we would go up to the 50-foot height. We would just go up to the next higher number like we do. Same thing with these rises. Now these are 1, 2, 3, but on the laterals, when you're single appliances, you might have like a 10, 15-foot lateral, but on your question it says 12 or 8. So then you just round up to the 10 or the 15, whatever's the next the next highest lateral. So in our case, we're staying on the top of this chart still. We're not using our common vent yet. So re-looking at this, we got 30 and 2, 40K net. So we're gonna go down to our 30 again. Look at our 2-foot rise. We're gonna see that our first nat, skip the fan min max, go to nat max, 37. That's not enough because we have a 40. So skip the fan min max, go to the next, and we see we got a 67. Well, 67 is more than 40, so that's good. So we look up, we see fan max, or sorry, nat max. Nat max is 67 on this one. We have a 40, so that makes that also a 4-inch. So that means this piece of pipe from here to here is a 4-inch. So now we got to size our common vent. And the way that works is pretty easy. Go to the bottom. First thing we want to do is add these together. So we see we got a 140. Okay? And we need to look at what they are. Is it a fan and a fan? Or is it a nat and a nat? Or is it a fan and a nat? So in this case, we have fan plus nat. We got a 140K, and we have a 30-foot height. So when we come to the bottom, on the same chart, B vent single wall, 2 or more, down here it says common vent capacity. So all you're doing is you're going down to your 30-foot height, and if you look here, you can see, let me zoom a little. Fan plus fan, fan plus nat, nat plus nat. And what we have is fan plus nat, right? Let's bring that back out. Yep, that's enough. Okay. So we go down to 30-foot height, and we go pick a fan plus nat that is more than 140. This first fan plus nat comes out to 132. So we need to go to the next fan plus nat. So 3 more over. There's 3 of these, right? So every 3. So if we find out that that 132 is fan plus nat, then we just go 1, 2, 3, 202. That's good because we need 140. And these are all by max, just like nat is, right? So 202 max, fan plus nat on a 30-foot height. So that means we need a 5-inch common vent. So that unit right there, 5-inch. We're talking about this chimney. And then of course that T fitting there would be a 4 by 5 by 4 T fitting. B vent, right? Okay. Let's look at the next one. It's a little more difficult. Okay, so we talked earlier about how this one's a little more difficult because we have all those common vent connectors, and then we have flue collar sizes involved here. So we have to make sure that we don't pick a piece of pipe that is smaller than our flue collar size. But as always, before we start looking at any of these stupid numbers, we got to get on the right table. So I understand this isn't the best drawing. I didn't make this drawing, as a disclaimer. Some old timer that was here long before me made this, but whatever. We can read it. It says that our chimney's a B vent. You know, they just didn't put the stupid dotted lines in there. Right, that's fine. We can deal with that. There, dotted lines now. You happy? Okay. So that's a B vent. And then it says here we got single wall connectors and common vent connectors. So that means the vent connectors is your little single stubs. Then your common vent connectors is your one in between every 2 or 3, you know, as we in between the units. So all of this from the end of this B vent all the way back to this unit right here, all the way back to here, that's all your single wall. So we have B vent, single wall, and we have 2 or more appliances. So as always, let's get on the right table first. So let's find B vent single wall, and I believe it happens to be the one we were just on already. 504.3 bracket 2. So just to verify, we want to double check that we have double wall B vent, 2 or more units, single wall connector. Before we do anything, that way we're not on the wrong table screwing stuff up, right? So we now have the right tables, and now we can start looking at numbers. So again, I always start, just like with the piping, I start with the smallest and I work my way back to the biggest. Some guys will like to start on the biggest and work their way back the other way. It doesn't really matter which way you go. But what does matter is the in-between here. Like these, we have to total up these BTUs here. So 80 and 35 is going to be 115. See how we total those up for that pipe right there? Then we're going to add 100 to that for this pipe, because now we have all 3 of those on it, just like with gas piping, right? So now we have 215 here. And then our last common vent right there, and this vent here for that matter. So both of those, as far as BTUs go, we're going to add another 150, which is going to bring us to 365. So we got 365K, right? On there. So again, we could start here. We could go backwards. I like to start here and go to bigger. So what we're sizing first is this first piece of pipe up to here, because that's where it tees and becomes 2, right? So we have a 20, and it says 3-foot rise here that I wrote in there. So we have 20 and 3, and these are all gnats. They all got regular old water heater looking draft hoods. So we got 20 and 3, 35 gnat. So let's go to our table now. We come down to 20, 3, and 35 gnat. Our first gnat max is 40. So it says we're good on that. If we come up, it says we need a 3-inch, right? But remember the rule about the flue collar. This one says we have a 4-inch flue collar, so we can't make this 3-inch. We have to make this 4-inch. So that piece of pipe is a 4-inch. Next, we're going to be looking at this piece of pipe. So that's actually just right here. So just that little stub right there coming off that 80K. We're not looking at this yet. So just that stub right there, we're going to use the same height, the same rise, so 20 and 3, but now we have an 80 gnat. So let's see what we get now. So we have 20 and 3. Our first gnat, 40, doesn't work. Go over 3 more, 72, that's not more than 80. 3 more, 113, there we go. Okay, so 113 says we need a 5-inch vent. So this one has a 5-inch flue collar, so good, that can stay a 5-inch. Okay, so you got 2 choices now. I like to do the vent connector next, but you could do this little one. You can do all these little ones first. You can do all the, all these stubs first. So, but just so you don't forget something, I kind of like to just go in a row. So our next piece of pipe we're going to be doing is this one right here. From here to there. And as we said before, it's got to account for the BTUs of both of those units, just like on with gas piping. So we got 115K. And those are gnats. Well, at least the second one's a gnat, so we're going to call that gnat. So we got 20 height, 3-foot rise, 115 gnat. So 20 and 3, 115 gnat. So when we come back to the table, we come down to 20 and 3, and 40 is not enough. Go over 3 more. 72 is not enough. Go over 3 more. 113 is not enough. 3 more. 164. There, that works. Okay. So 164 says we need a 6-inch. So that common vent connector right there is going to be a 6-inch. So this T here would be a 4x6x5 T, single wall that you have on there. Okay, now I want to do this piece of pipe. From there to there, coming off this 100K here. So 20 and 3. You guys are getting the gist of it now, right? 20 and 3, 100K nat. 20 and 3, 100 nat. So come back to your book. 20 and 3. 40 is not enough. Go over 3. 72. Nope. 3 more. 113. There we go. That says we need a 5-inch. Well, this one's got a 6-inch flue collar, so like before, we can't go down to 5-inch. That's going to stay a 6-inch. If it didn't say a flue collar there on your question, you can make it a 5, but we can't be smaller than our flue collar, so we got to stay a 6 there. So the next one we want to do here is the 215, which is the common vent of those 3 units. When we add these together, all 3, we get 215. So 20 and 3, 215 nat, because that last one's a nat, right? So 20 and 3, 40 doesn't work. 3 more, 72 doesn't work. 3 more, 113 doesn't work. 3 more, 164 doesn't work. 3 more, 223. That's more than 215. That'll work. So that says we need a 7. So our common vent connector on this one's a 7. For this piece of pipe right here to right here. And we need a 6 by 7 by 6 T from the parts house, single wall. Okay, next one we want to do is this stub from here to here off this 150K. Just like we've been doing, we're going to go 20 and 3, 150 nat. So 20 and 3, 40 doesn't work, 72 doesn't work, 3 more, 113. 3 more, 164. There we go, 164. That says we need a 6-inch, but we got a 7-inch flue collar, so that needs to stay a 7. Okay, last piece from the top, and then we go to the bottom for this common vent. So what we're doing is from this pipe, that piece of pipe, to our chimney, that little L bend right there. And we already determined the whole BTUs of the whole system's 365. So 20 and 3, 365 nat. Because you know they're all nat. Basically the last one, whatever the last one is what we're going to treat on that one right there. So 20 and 3, last one's a nat, so 365 nat. So coming back here again, 20 and 3. And then 40's not enough, 3 more, 72, 3 more, 113. And every 3 until we get one that's more than 365, which is right there, 375. That 375 we see as a 9. So we need a 9-inch for that one. So this T here would be a 7 by 9 by 7 T. Or 9 by 7, 7, however you want to say it. So now we got to do our common vent, our chimney. And remember that comes off the bottom, that common vent capacity. So the way we do this is we total them all up and we talk about what we have. Do we have fan, do we have fan nat? In this case they're all nats. So we have 365, nat plus nat, and we have that 20-foot height. So I'd go ahead and write that down. 365 nat plus nat, 20-foot height. And then we come down here to our common vent capacity. We got our 20-foot height. And then nat plus nat's the third one. So we just come over every 3 from there until we get a number bigger than 365, which puts me at this 395 right here. When I come up from the 395, it says I need an 8-inch. So it says that chimney right there should be 8-inch. But it can't be because we already went 9-inch on the connector there. So that chimney has to be a 9-inch B vent. Now one thing I need to remind us about, because it wasn't going to be in here, is I mentioned earlier that Spokane has the rule of, and I imagine other jurisdictions probably do as well, but we can't vent fan assist units into masonry. Here we have two different licenses. We have one for 400,000 BTUs, below 400,000 BTUs. And then we have another license, a bigger license that you can get for gas equipment that's over 400,000 BTUs. Now, we're talking venting here, that applies to the lesser license, the Mechanics 1 license, under 400,000 BTUs. And so, if you see something like this, where it's got masonry chimney, and then it's got a fan assist unit, and you can actually see it from the words here. Fan assisted, masonry chimney, B vent connector, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But for our Mech 1 test, if you see that, and it doesn't matter if it's one fan assist unit or if it's more than one fan assist unit, there could be 6 of them. And if there's not a natural draft unit, like if we don't have a nat over here also going into that masonry, then it's illegal. And as far as the test goes, you don't even got to bother sizing it. You just go NA. And believe me, one of the 4 multiple choice answers will be NA. So, whenever you see fan assist into masonry, automatic NA, can't do it. We can actually look at the science as to why. Because, you know, your typical residential furnace, 400,000 BTUs or smaller, is going to have a pretty small flue collar on there, right? Maybe 4-inch, maybe 6-inch, depending on how big it is. And when we look at this table here, this is the masonry. I just picked the single appliance because it's bigger, shows better on the camera. Masonry, B vent, and it's even worse with single wall. But when you look at all these sizes, and you look at fan min max, you can see that it says NA, NA, and every column is NA all the way down until you get over here in the 8-inch, 9-inch stuff. When you look at single wall, it's even worse. You got these NAs coming down, and depending on your vent height, it doesn't start working until you get up in the, you know, 200,000, 300,000 area. And at which point we're up in the 8-9-inch vent size, which would exceed the 2 inches bigger than what we're supposed to have by code, right? So it shows that in the charts. However, on a couple of our questions on the 2 or more units, I believe, if you don't know that rule, you end up getting 4-inch as your answer because the book says you can do it. And then you get 4-inch and the answer is supposed to be NA and you get it wrong on the test. So whenever I get a question about masonry, the first thing I do is see if there's a NAT. And if there's not a NAT, I just write NA and NA and I move on. I don't even try to answer it. But unfortunately, if there is a NAT, then okay, crap, we have to answer it. Now, I intentionally didn't do single appliances because, so far anyway, because they're easy. You look at their numbers, you get the one size. You don't have to go to the bottom of the chart to get the vent connector, you know, common vent capacity or any of that kind of crap. But I have one on here, and I'll show you just for the heck of it. Just because I don't have any other ones in this video. Let's look at number 2 here. We have a single unit, fan assist. Looks like we got a B vent, 350 fan assist, 10-foot lateral with a 50-foot height. Now the first thing we want to do is get on the right table, but before we do that, sometimes you guys get mixed up with these words. And so we want to kind of itemize it, right? So we want to look at what we have. We have a B vent with a B vent connector. So the first thing I'll do over here is I'll write B vent /B vent. Then I see that I got a 50-foot height and a 10-foot lateral. So now I'll put my 50 height and my 10-foot lateral here. I have 50-foot height, 10-foot lateral there, right? Then I see I have a 350K fan assist. So I'll put 350 fan. So now I don't have to worry about what's in these words. I've done itemized it all over here on the side in a nice little itemized section here. So, but now my next move is to get on the right table. So I have one unit, B vent, which is going to happen to just be the first table. 5042 bracket 1. Always double check. So I got B vent, single unit, connected directly to the vent, which means the whole thing's B vent, right? So I verified I got the right table. Now I want to look at my numbers. I got 50 and 10, 350 fan. So 50 is actually on the next part of the table. I can see here I got 50, 10-foot lateral, and 350 fan. So fan min max 26, 27, that won't work. I got to come up fan min max till I get a 350. Here we go. 56 to 471. 350's in between that. Sure, that works. Now it's also in between the next one, 73 at 681, but at least for test purposes, we're supposed to use the smallest possible one. So even though it works over here on the 7-inch, we have to use that first one we get from that 6-inch. So and there's nothing else to do on a single appliance. Literally, we'll just say, okay, that's a 6-inch, and we're done. We don't have to do any like common vent capacity or anything like that, right? So what I've done now is I've set aside a couple of these. We can look at these. And we want to start by itemizing, right? So we see that we got, pick out our vent and our connector first. We got a B vent, and it says we got single wall connector. So over here on the side, we're going to write B vent, single wall, okay? And now I see two BTU totals, an 85 and a 50,000, obviously, K. So I know it's going to be 2 or more. Then I could look at my height, 14 high, and a 1 foot rise. 1 foot rise. Now I have a fan assisted 85K. So I could put 85 fan, and I usually just put an F. And then I have a draft hood, natural draft, 50. So I'm going to have a 50 nat. And that's all my info now. I don't have to look at those words anymore. I got it all itemized. So my next move is to find the right chart. B vent, single wall, 2 or more. So 2 or more, we know it's not going to be sideways. So B vent, single wall is going to put us on 5043 bracket 2. We're going to verify B vent, 2 or more, single wall connector. Okay, that is the chart I want to use. Now, it says connector for the draft hood appliance. Well, the 50's the nat, so we want to look at 14 and 1, 50 nat, right? Now, like I said before, there is no 14, so we're going to go up to 15. We're going to go 15 and 1, and my first nat max is 29. That won't work. My next nat max is 52. That does work. Okay, 52 is more than 50, I think we agree. So that means that small unit needs to be a 4-inch. Okay, so I'll have an A, B, C, D for that. I'll pick 4-inch. Now, it says for the fan assist, so that's an 85 fan. So again, 15 and 1. I know it says 14, but we decided to go, we're going to round to 15, right? So 15 and 1, 85 fan. So just like before, 15 and 1. First fan min-max is NA. Uh-oh, that's not looking good. Next fan min-max, 79 to 87. Ours is what? 85? That'll work. 79 to 87. We're barely in there, but we are. 85's between 79 and 87. We see fan min-max. 79, 87. So that unit is also a 4-inch. Whoops. We're not there yet. Okay. Happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say. All right, now, common vent. So remember, this is where we need to go to the bottom of the table. Now, 85 and 50 is what, 135? So we have 135 total, and we have fan plus nat. So fan plus nat, and we have a 15-foot height. So we just itemize that, 135, fan plus nat, 15-foot height. So we come down here to our common vent part. We go down to our 15-foot height, and then fan plus nat looks like it's the second one, and we're looking for bigger than 135. So 108's not enough. So come over 3 more, fan plus nat, 159. That works. So that says we need a 5-inch common vent. So that'll be a 5-inch right there. So what we've done, if we look back on this other one, is we've basically done a 4-inch here, and a 4-inch here, and a 5-inch there. 4-inch for that one, 4-inch for that one, 5-inch common vent. We just did it in word form, which the test ones are in word form. Okay, so the next one we got was masonry chimney. And remember, as soon as I see masonry, the first thing I do is, do I have a draft hood appliance? Crap. Unfortunately, I do. I have a draft hood right there, so that means I have to do this. I can't just write NA, right? So let's make some notes. First thing, 8 by 12 liner. That's important. So I'm going to start with that 8 by 12. And that equals 96. I'm going to come back to that later. Okay, now let's make our little notes on the side. We got masonry, and we have, what's our connector here? Let's see here. Single wall. It says both these units are single wall connectors. So we're going to write masonry, single wall. Then we can look at our height, 25, and it looks like both these units have 3-foot rise, so that makes it easy. 25 high, 3-foot rise. Okay, now we have a draft hood appliance, 40K. So I got 40 nat. And I have a fan assist appliance, 120. So I got 120 fan. So I have all the info I need. Now I can look. So now I got to get on the right table. So I have 2 units. So it won't be sideways. It's going to be normal way. Masonry with a single wall connector. So I want to look here. I got masonry single wall, 5043 bracket 4. See, I got a masonry chimney, 2 or more units, single wall connector. Now I can look at numbers. I have, let's see, what do we want first? The draft hood, that's a 40. So I'm going to look at 25 and 3, 40 nat. As before, we don't have a 25. So we're going to go to 30. 30 and 3. First nat max is 35. Second nat max is 65. Well, that'll work. So that needs a 40. Or sorry, a 4-inch. A 4-inch. Okay. Now we want the fan assist, 25 and 3, 120 fan. So we come down to 30 and 3. First one's NA, fan min max. Next fan min max is 95 to 127. 120 is between that, right? So that'll work. Come up to the top, we see we need a 4-inch. So that one, I quit dropping my pen, is also a 4-inch. I don't remember if the ones on the test have this does it follow code thing, but they definitely don't have this if not what changes need to be made. And what they mean by does it follow code, first of all, we didn't get any NAs, so that answer is yes. But I believe on the test they ask you if the chimney's big enough. So that's something we haven't done yet up to this point, to see if the chimney's big enough. We've been looking at our common vent capacity, but remember on masonry, you're not sizing a piece of pipe to install, like the masonry chimney's already there. So you have to verify that what you have is big enough, and that's where this 96 comes in. We got an 8x12 chimney with a terracotta liner, therefore it's legal. 8x12 inside of the chimney, right? 96 inch total. So just like before, we want to add these together. We got 160, and we have fan plus nat, and we have a 25-foot height, and we need to see if our chimney's big enough. So we come down to the bottom, we got 30-foot height, and then we want to come across until we get a fan plus nat that's bigger than 160. The first one we get that's not NA is nat plus nat. So I need a fan plus nat. There it is. 398. That's more than 160, so that works. Fan plus nat. And we see that our minimum internal area of our chimney is 38 square inches. And we have 96. We need 38. So yes, that chimney's big enough. There is such a thing as too big of a chimney. I'm not going to go into it on this video. But that only applies to single appliances. So don't worry about it on this 2 or more that we're doing here. So that should cover venting well enough. Just make sure you get on the right table first. Itemize your word questions. Don't forget that the common vent has to come from the bottom chart. It doesn't come from the top chart. So a good way to think of that is everything that is horizontal. So all the horizontal stuff, all the units, all their connectors, all that kind of crap, that comes off the top part of the chart. And then this last vertical piece is what comes off that bottom part of the chart. And with single appliances, you don't have that. You just what size is it, you just do it. So we also got to remember, we cannot do fan assist into masonry. That's a no-go. So this over here, it doesn't matter if it's a B vent or if it's a single wall. If you see fan into masonry, even if it's 2 fans into masonry, it's automatic NA. It only works if there's fan and nat. You're welcome. So there you have it, venting. Hopefully it was informative enough. Also, I left a couple mistakes in there for you to kind of show some of the things that happen. And all you got to do is just practice it a few times and it'll come to you. It's really simple. Get on the right chart first, and then just remember the fan has that min-max thing, and then nat max, and then your common vent for the 2 or more tables comes off that bottom part of the chart. And pretty much just plug your numbers in and pull them off the chart. There's no real like adding or anything like that that you have to do like with the gas piping. So hopefully the video helped. You're welcome.